Hey, Mike, it's so great to finally have you on the podcast.
Shannon, I am so excited to be here. I don't know how you take this, but I'm so proud of you because it's been like full circle. I mean, first of all, I think it's ridiculous that we still haven't met in person. This is
I
like a
know.
virtual
I
relationship that's been
know.
going on for years. But when I think about like how I first met you and now you're like interviewing me on your podcast, it's really cool. And I'm happy to be here. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I know you have a ton of value to offer our listeners because for those who don't know, Mike is a client of mine and we interface pretty regularly. He's one of the clients that I'm the closest to in that I serve him in the capacity of my CFO service. And really just had so much pleasure in watching you and Jess's business grow over the past couple of years, and being along for the ride for that has been amazing. So having a unique perspective to bring to your business and vice versa is, I think, what makes this really work.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, I appreciate you saying that I can bring value. I think that I can because of the story that we're able to tell together.
Mhm.
And, not to blow you up too much here, but you have played and continued to play a big role in why we are at where we're at in our business and in our personal lives as well. So, thank you for
Appreciate
that.
that. Yeah. So let's start with background. Tell us a bit about the journey, especially over the last year or so. I know you guys have been through a lot, but let's just talk about where you're at now in terms of your entrepreneurial journey, what you're doing right now and kind of what got you there in a nutshell, because I know you have a story to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think that the easiest way to relate to most people is to say where I started. And I was working a traditional 9 to 5 job at a big bank that everyone's probably heard of. We'll leave it off. And genuinely, I loved my job. I loved the experience that I was getting. I was managing a team. I was immersed in the finance world, but also the management world. So I got a tremendous amount of experience as far as managing people, building relationships, but also I always say this, my three best friends are financial advisors. So I was immersed in that world. Uh, Now, Jess on the other side was building what used to be a side hustle into a pretty successful online coaching business. This was all going on the side while I was just doing my own thing at the bank. I had an idea of what she was doing, but I was in my own world as well, trying to grow my career and thought that I was going to retire there. Right. So that was my perspective. And then 2020 is really when things started to change. I think it changed for, a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. But for us, Jess's business really exploded. Uh, Business on my end got extremely, extremely challenging just because of everything that was going on in the world. We started to kind of look inward and say, okay, what is the future that we want? And what do we want our life to look like in 5 years? And I could fast forward 5 years from where I was when I was at the bank and be very, very happy with, I knew where I was going to get to. I had this good career trajectory going, but there was still something missing. And for us, it was the full freedom to be able to live where we want, how we want, and really on our own time. So we did a lot of thinking and talking, and I decided to join Jess's business full time. Now, some might say, well, it must have been an easy decision. Jess's business was doing so well. But when you look at it from the perspective of more of a safe career that I had, right? There was that fear. I also had definitely the addiction to the paycheck, right? And to the prospect of what that could become over 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, right? I thought I was going to retire there. But then when we really looked at that from but are we truly free? Are we financially free? Are we free in terms of where we can live? The answer was no, right? We loved living in Metro New York, but we wanted the ability to be able to go somewhere else. Now, the other part to this is Jess grew to a point where she needed someone like me in the business. And when I say someone like me, it's someone that could operate the back end, the finances, the legal. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a financial advisor, but I could operate that back end for her. So she could just stay in her zone of genius. Right. So it was really, as far as business goes, on paper, it was an easy transition. I'm sure we'll dive into some of the other stuff, but
Right.
the hardest part was really, my identity was really tied up in the bank. It's who I was, right? My ego was tied up in, I work in Midtown Manhattan. I manage 200 people. I do XYZ. I was, before Jess's business blew up, I was the breadwinner, right? So there was a lot of ego ties to the life. There was a lot of really positive things about it too, but those were the hardest challenges, not the transition into working with a spouse, because I could immediately add value because of my background. So a lot of information there. I hope that kind of paints the picture of who we were and who we've kind of become a little bit in this husband and wife business that we have running right now.
Yeah. And I think that for those who know your story or have heard of your story, that it's interesting that it does seem like a logical thing that's like, yeah, the business was taking off and Mike could jump ship, then why not? But coming from a similar background to you, I know that that is not easy because we're really conditioned into that paycheck, conditioned into that career mindset. And the idea of cutting that short is really a disruptor in every aspect of your life, including identity, it's very real.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, quick story. I'll make this one shorter than that one, but
Go for it.
I was home for the first time in about a year and a half this past weekend. And I was talking to probably the person that I was closest with growing up, and one of the people closest with. And it was interesting hearing the perspective. And I think a lot of people can relate to this, talking about, man, I'm just so happy in my job because I have a pension, because I know I can retire there. There wasn't any mention of, I'm happy in my job because of what I'm doing. It's okay. It's great. It pays the bills. My kids live a great life. And listen, there's nothing wrong with that. You do need to balance those things, right? And I'm not going to pretend like if you have kids in the mix or whatever challenge or whatever other circumstance, that's a better word. Thank you. Kids can be challenging, I'm sure. Jess and I don't have that. We didn't have a dog when we made this decision. We don't have kids. We were able to just get up and go. But what was fascinating was going back to the addiction thing. We do get addicted to that perceived security, right? That perceived safety, and it's addicting. And I think sometimes that can hold us back and limit our, really box in our potential to what we can do. And we're not going to know until we take some sort of leap.
Right. And talking about that as a leap, right? When I left my big firm, I left after 7 years. And that was my only career that I had at the time. And I left thinking this was like a giant move that I would never forget. And this was such a big commitment. It felt bigger than marriage. Like leaving this company felt like a divorce of like someone. And then I realized that like, wait a second. And then I got out the door and I went, wait a second. At any moment, I can turn back around, go back in and get my job back.
Yeah.
So I have nothing to lose by doing this.
Nothing. The only thing you have to lose is literally not doing it and living in a scenario where you're always asking that what if is detrimental, right? I mean, like, think about it. Like, if you get to a certain point in your life and you say, man, but what if, right? So I love what you just said. And I had to, someone helped me realize that, because I went through a 2-week period where I was just going back and forth. Oh, man, I can't leave, this and that. And it was my brother-in-law. He's just like, Mike, do you think if you don't like what you're doing with Jess, or, you guys come on hard times, quote, hard times, you're going to be homeless, or what's the worst case scenario? And I'm just like, well, I guess I could. He's like, you can get another job. Like you wrote it. So it comes down to belief in yourself, right? So I rose through the ranks in that company. Why wouldn't I be able to do it somewhere else? Right. So
and also, you're not starting over.
No. And that's the thing. Like, even if maybe someday I'll get to the point where what I'm doing right now is not aligned with my life, all the lessons that I've gained, right? Whether it's the conversations you and I have had about taxes or finance, whether it's being on this podcast, whether it's learning how to run funnels and things like that for our business. It wasn't a waste. Those were lessons. Those were experiences, right? So we need to learn that we have to stop thinking, but what could happen in, like, from a negative perspective? It's like, well, yeah, but think about the possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think that's where sometimes we get paralyzed by fear, right?
Yeah, it's a weird like FOMO thing. Like if I don't stay here, I'm gonna miss out on opportunities, or I'm gonna miss out on this, this, and this. I'm gonna be missing time, and I'm gonna be behind if I come back. And when you realize there's no linear flow to it, and you realize that like you're better for your experiences no matter where they are. So I left my firm. I ended up working in so many different roles, but I'm telling you that like 4 companies later, I worked at a big Fortune 50 company. And the reason why I was successful in each role I was in was because of the experience before it. And because of my business experience, and because I
Yeah.
was building my business on the side, I was better at things that I needed to do in the job. So I quit my job a month ago, just a month ago. And I've talked about it on
Congrats.
the show. Thank you. But I've quit the job a month ago, and I really, the decision was actually, I didn't like jump up and cheer and celebrate. I didn't do any of this stuff because I said, this is just the next step. And
Mm-hmm.
if this doesn't work out for whatever reason, I know I don't want to work for this last company because they drove me crazy. But I said, I know that I'm taking with me all of these skills I've acquired over the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
And I'm carrying that to the next thing, but with way more clarity about what I want to be doing. So there's never time wasted. It's exactly what you said. It's never time wasted if you go out and try to
Never.
do it.
No, never. And you mentioned linear, right? And I just want to make this quick point too. And this was probably like the biggest revelation I had, because I didn't mention this in my little intro, but
Mm-hmm.
for the listeners, Jess and I lived in an RV for 14 months after I left my job. We moved out of New York City, bought a 40-foot motor home, and drove around the country, worked remotely, and got to see the country, which was incredible. But when people ask me what was your biggest lesson, it's not something really RV related or even so much business related. It's very mindset related, and it's the path is the path, right? And oftentimes I would overthink, overanalyze, and create analysis paralysis, thinking about what if, pretending, fooling myself that I could control scenarios. So going back to the linear thing, regardless of what choice you make, you're not going to know what the outcome was going to be. And I always think about an extreme example where if you didn't decide to do XYZ and you chose the path that you chose, maybe you would have died in a plane crash if you took the other way, right? And that's the extreme example, but like, you're not going to know. So
Right.
it doesn't make any sense, or it's really a waste of time to let fear control the what if. It's okay to plan. You want to plan, but you can't control the outcome. You can
Right.
just take steps, take actions, learn along the way. And that's where the beautiful thing comes, is learning along the way. Because you're not going to know what the alternative was, because you chose the path you chose. Just keep moving. We learned that living in the RV, because the path was the path. It doesn't matter what was in that state. We chose to go to this state. And then we applied it to business in our life. And for me, it's been liberating.
For sure. And my equivalent of that is my aha came when my dad passed away in 2013, because up until that point, it was always like, what's your 5-year plan? What's your 3-year plan? What's your whatever? That shattered everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like it shattered everything. So, and then I also realized that that's when I got into fitness, and like really my life changed. And I thought, the hell's the point of a 5-year plan? Look what happened to me in the last 5 years. And I took an audit of the last 5 years and said, I never would have been able to anticipate this. So then that's when I actually just stopped 5-year planning and trying to control my outcomes. And I said, you know what? All I have to worry about is, how do I want to feel?
Mhm.
And then what are the things I can do right now, tomorrow, next month, that will help me? And that it's almost just like as you go, just knowing what that next step looks like is all that matters. You just have to have a little bit, to be honest, I'm much more short-sighted, which sounds bad, but it's actually more liberating to not have the pressure of expectations of the future, which is the biggest thing for
Totally.
me.
Yeah. And I think it's good to have goals. So when you
Yeah.
say like 2 year, 1 year, 5 year, it's good to have goals, but to take the little steps towards those goals. But also, to the point that you made about your dad, you made me think, I lost my mom when I was 20 and I
Mhm.
had never really thought about it. Maybe that is why it's it's been easy for me to make these big decisions, these life-changing things. I've uprooted my life many times when in the past 15, 20 years I have. And that could be a reason why, but it's so true, right? I mean, one of the things that I think everyone will agree with, 2020 really taught us to value relationships with people, to value the time you spent with people. And if we're just so focused on like getting to the next level, which I think is important. I truly do, right? Because you
Mhm.
want to live a life of abundance. You want to be able to help other people. So getting to the next level is a great goal, but sprinkled in between there has to be things that light you up,
Mm.
whether it's seeing family, maybe it's not seeing family, right? It's literally just doing what lights you up and helps you make decisions that are aligned for you. Because when you do that, you're able to give more value to other people in business, in life, in relationships. So those are things that we've learned a lot over the years, and we still have to remind ourselves of, and we still read the personal development books and listen to the podcasts. But I love what you said. It's like, I mean, we could walk outside tomorrow or maybe not wake up, right? So it's like, and it doesn't mean
Yeah.
blow all your money, but what it
Right.
means is like live a life of alignment that's going to be able to create abundance for you and your family.
Yeah. I believe in this idea of moderation where you're not starving yourself, hoping for a future that's
Mm-hmm.
brighter, because like I've mentioned this on prior episodes that, my dad and Jason's dad both passed before they could legit retire. And and I mean, hell, I had on my flight down to Costa Rica, had an engine fail on the plane. That is a moment where you go, okay.
Yeah.
You have these moments in your life. And I think some of the luckiest people on earth have are blessed with these moments that don't have a negative outcome. But the blessing is to have these moments where it's a stark reminder of like, are you happy? Are you doing what lights you up? Are you, if you closed your chapter today, how did that book go? Like
Yeah.
if you're writing your last chapter, how's the story? And
Mm-hmm.
it's a really great reminder not to be like morbid or talk about the negative or be sad, but it's truly, I mean, it's reality, and we have to be living our best life, as cliche as that is. We have to live our best life as much as possible that we're happy
Yeah.
with, and not for anyone else but us. And that's also part of it too, going back to your decision to leave the bank, um and mine to leave the firm. I had an immense pressure, and I don't know about you, that what will people think? And also I was happy because I had status, I had a good job on paper, I made people proud.
Mm-hmm.
I was happy because I made my dad really proud when I made manager at the firm. And he was literally I've never told you the story, but he was literally on his deathbed. And I was asking I didn't know he was on his deathbed at the time. And I was asking for advice because I said, I'm just not happy anymore at the firm. What do I do? Because there was literally a carved out path where he told me every chess piece to move to be
Yeah.
successful in my career, because he was also a CPA. And I was manager 3 at my firm. And he looked at me and said, do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
And I said, what? And he's like, you're done.
Yeah.
You've done everything I've told you to do, and do whatever the fuck you want, Shan.
Okay, let me ask you a question, Shannon.
Yeah.
Before you asked him that,
Yeah.
were you, because I'll get to the reason why, but
Yeah.
Were you nervous to ask him that question because of who he was to you?
No, because it was
Or
always, he was my Google. So it's like, what do I
were
do?
you
Dad?
surprised by the answer?
Yes.
Okay. I
Because
guess that's more.
it was always tactical. It was always, what
Yeah.
do I do next? Make manager, then talk to me.
Hmm.
It was pass your exam, go take these, don't take it all the way back to college. Don't take auditing the same semester as business policy. Don't take this the same semester. Do this, get an internship, do this, get a job.
Yeah.
Um, and then it turned into, you know, Shannon, you got to make senior, then you can talk to me. You got to make manager. And then I
Hmm.
made manager. I did everything on his checklist. I just obeyed and said, okay, okay, okay. He's like, trust me, make manager. Okay, I made manager. So then I get up to the point where I'm about to make senior manager. And I was like, Dad, I don't like this anymore.
Yeah.
And I said, what do I do? And then he just started with whatever the fuck you want. And I went, you're not going to tell me to stick it out, make senior manager? No, you're done. This is all I
Yeah.
wanted. You can do whatever you
Liberating.
want. He's like, you can do whatever you want now. You did everything. You're at the top of the mountain. Do you not realize that? Because I was like, what's the next part of the mountain? He's like, look at the goddamn view.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
the thing. He was like, look at the goddamn view. You can do whatever you want now. Go. And that was the first time he let me, because there were trust me, plenty of conversations of, I really want to leave. I really want to leave. I really want to leave. And he convinced me to stay.
Yeah.
And I knew he was going to do that again and use his wisdom to convince me to stay. And then I said, wait, what? And he literally died the next week. He
Wow.
never saw me do anything after that job, and nor get into fitness, nor do anything. Like, he would
Yeah, but
not.
look at the impact he had just from
Right.
that sentence, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the thing where I go, if I could only, I had this idea, by the way, and I know you mentioned your mom. I had this idea to uh leave my dad a voicemail, like a voice memo, leave my dad a voicemail every year on his birthday.
Come on, Shannon, don't make me cry. We're on video.
I know, but I wanted to leave him a voice. I just started this idea because I said, you know what, next year or this year, I'm going to start. It's been 10 years,
Hmm.
but I want to start leaving him. I had this thought pop into my head the other day. I said, I want to leave dad a voicemail. Like, I wish every 10 years I could be like, check in,
Yeah. 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 I know.
because I want to say, oh my God, you won't believe what has happened since you've been gone. So I got married. I did this. I
Well,
did
it's
this.
good for you to do that, because then I think oftentimes we don't look at our accomplishments and we think like,
That's the thing. So
yeah.
I wanted to be able to have him be proud of me and feel
Mhm.
that by saying it to him
Right.
the way I would say it to him. So I actually wanted to start doing that, is taking voice notes and doing that, because anyone who knows me knows my story. He was a massive influence in my life. So the idea of putting that together and celebrating accomplishments, because I think that's actually in the underneath all the stuff that, like, both of you and I have dealt with. There's a
Hmm.
lot of the um wanting to make someone proud, wanting to do it for other people, or because society tells you that's what you're supposed to do. Like, we just kind of
Yeah.
followed the path that was carved out, and we were proud of ourselves. And then it's like, oh wait, that's not the only, oh, I'm playing a different game than other people are. Like, I'm winning this game, but there's a different game I can play.
Yeah,
And it's
totally.
crazy.
And yeah, there's so many things that can create boxes that we
Yeah.
put ourselves in: society, parents, all sorts of different things, fear, right?
Hmm.
And it's important to just say that whatever someone chooses is fine, right? Like, that's why I said earlier, like, if you if it's what you want. If you
Right.
like the 9 to 5, do the 9 to 5,
Yeah.
right? If that's fulfilling your life, yes, go ahead. And there was so much of what I was doing was fulfilling it for me. But the reason I asked you that question is because you asked if I was worried what people would think.
Hmm.
There was only one person that I was worried about, but it wasn't that I wasn't going to do it. I was more so, I didn't want to, crush is a strong word.
Hmm.
I didn't want to worry them. And it was my dad, because my dad, born in the 40s. So for us, old school, right?
Hmm.
And he didn't know what I was doing in terms of work, as far as like the details like your dad knew,
Yeah.
but he could definitely add a tremendous amount of value in terms of work ethic, relationship building. I was somebody who never called out, that type of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
I prided myself in that type of stuff because that's the way I was raised. So he's the type of guy who, I had 4 weeks paid vacation at the bank. He's the type of guy where if I took a vacation and I was like, Dad, I'm going skiing for a week, you know, with my buddies, he would be like, Mike, are you sure? Are you worried that you're going to get in trouble at work? And he couldn't connect the dots between like, no, I have this because of the job that I have, and because I've worked hard to get 4 weeks paid vacation, you know, which is a lot, I feel like, in America, right? A lot for somebody that was like not there 40 years or whatever.
Right.
So, and not a tech company. But yeah, my dad, I was scared to tell my dad. And what was so cool, similar to your story, but a little different, was he was just like, I was actually blown away. He said, Mike, I know you and Jess know what you're doing. I know you've done well saving. I know that you guys have your heads on straight. And I know Jess's business is doing well. He's like, and I'm so excited for you. And for me, that was just like so liberating. It was like the box was gone, even though I created it. Right. And I was going to do it regardless, but it's like I told so many people before I told him, because I had created that box of like, and there's a whole other childhood things that we're not going to unpack here, but like things where it's just like, I was so worried about what is dad going to think? I have to impress dad, you know? So anyway,
I would have been the same way. If he were around for that decision, he would have made some smart ass comment like, I just wanted you to come work for me. Like, why, he would probably just be like, well, I'm just jealous that like, you're not coming to work for me. You want to go do your own thing. That's whatever. But he would be proud at the end of the day, but he would find a way to make it self-deprecating.
Of course he's proud. Of course he's proud.
Yeah. So, so along with all of that, right, what would you say are some of the mistakes that you guys have made, or you, or both of you have made, that you're the most grateful for?
Yeah. And I like that you ended it with grateful for, because I was about to say, it's important. And I have to constantly remind myself of this, is like, everything's a lesson, right? And sometimes the lessons can be like really, really harsh, right? I've made some tough investments that were very expensive lessons that I believe you know of. Hopefully it won't be a lesson, but I would say hire before you're ready is probably before you think you're ready, right? And this one you and I kind of already touched on, but like making decisions from a place of alignment and abundance. And we could dig into that more if you want to, instead of fear and scarcity. Because when we make decisions from alignment, meaning it's truly what we want to do, and our intuition is telling us this is what's best for us, as opposed to, no, I need to go in that direction because the logic brain has taken over and I've calculated it out and all this, but I don't really want to do that, right? That's more of a scarcity and fear mindset. Every single time Jess and I have made decisions, or myself, I'll talk about myself, have made a decision from a place of alignment where there's no fear. And I look at the things that may be bumpy as a lesson, the most beautiful things have come from them. The best relationships, the most money, all these types of things. And a lot of people roll their eyes at these things. And they think that, no, everything is grinding and structure and organization. And like, that I am all about hard work, having systems, those things work, right? But if you're not making those decisions and building those systems from a place of alignment, you're going to end up in the same situation that you were in when you were trying to leave your 9 to 5, or whether you're in the 9 to 5, or maybe you're in the 9 to 5 and you're making decisions out of scarcity. So this literally applies to everything. So for the business owner, I would say, or the new business owner, or the entrepreneur, 100% hire before you're ready. And that doesn't mean just people that are working for you. That means bring in specialized help, whether it's legal, CPA. You don't know what you don't know, right? And here's a full circle moment. I worked at a bank. I have immersed myself in understanding investments. I would say more than the average person, more than the average person.
Right.
I have friends that aren't advisors, but they are much more well-read than I am. But you and I can have in-depth conversations. Now, that being said, I didn't know what I didn't know until you and I started working together and you started plugging blind spots. So when I looked at that and I was like, oh my goodness, where else do we need to do this in our business? Whether it's creating content, marketing, mental health, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's mindset or spiritual stuff. And you can apply it to fitness. You can apply it to everything. There are specialists for a reason. So hire before you're ready. And for the folks that are maybe working at a big company or a small company and working for people, make sure your decisions are from a place of alignment, because there will be zero resentment. You'll learn lessons along the way, and it'll push you to do things that are probably uncomfortable, but they're aligned with yourself, and you will learn from that and get better at it. So yeah, those are like the biggest two things that have completely, I would say, skyrocketed a lot of different areas of our business and personal life.
Very true. And I couldn't agree with that more. And I think the hire before you're ready advice, we hear all that all the time, but I think people overestimate what we're trying to say by saying like, well, I'm not ready to hire a full-time employee yet. No,
Mm-hmm.
no.
That's a great point.
Right. It's hiring, it's getting help before you think you need it. And it's just getting the help in the areas that you're not the strongest in, but it's also actually starting with having an awareness of where those blind spots are. And that really goes back to the ego and all these other things of, yeah, you could do it all yourself, but there are people who actually made it their entire livelihood to do that part of your business.
Yeah, totally. And a lot of times we think we're being sold, which in fact we are, but the purpose of sales is to get out your product or whatever it is that you do to help people, right? So not everyone's coming from a place of like, I just want your money. It's like, no, this person can probably help you more than, and you know what's interesting about this? We could hire someone to do something for the business. They might not even be able to do it better than Jess or better than me. But we can't just look at it as a one layer thing. It's multi-layered. Maybe they don't do it better because they can't extract out of like my mind or Jess's mind exactly what we want. But what does it do? It frees up time. Maybe I don't want to do that task just because I'm good at it. I don't like doing it. So we talk about alignment. I'm not aligned with that task. I'm getting frustrated. I'm getting it done. It's pulling away what makes Mike unique, Jess unique, Shannon unique to the business. And when that happens, we just stay stuck, right?
Right.
So to your point about also like kind of taking baby steps, and like, you don't need to hire a person that's making $150,000 and, W-2 them and all this stuff. No, it's like, and I just got off the phone with someone in our mastermind about this. Hey, start with 10 hours a week, pay this person, see how it goes, right? Do what you can afford, but do it sooner. Because when you do it, you'll be able to focus on other things of the business. You'll be able to focus on other things that might be blind spots. It'll also catapult that specific thing with the specialist that probably wasn't getting done as well as it could have been done.
Yeah. And I think that we all wait until something tips before we realize that we need to hire.
Yep.
And that's the hardest part is I think almost all of us learned that lesson where I'm looking back to a year ago and thinking, how did I do this all by myself? Because now I have like 5 different people working with me.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how the hell? I messaged that to you the other night. I said, how did I do this a year ago? I was working maybe 14-hour days and just not eating. And I'm still working long hours. I'm trying to eat, but I'm also at the same time doing things that are better for the business. Like I'm doing more managerial tasks. I am doing vision work. I am doing building the business and advising the people who are doing the work, getting more done. And that's the important thing. And I did start hiring last summer, but could I have done it last winter? Yeah. And I'm realizing like, oh, I wasn't ready then. I didn't think I was ready, but I probably should have. I never would have known that I was ready for it until I experienced that real strain and then said, okay, that's it. I'm hiring.
Yeah. I mean, when I think back to 2020, when, we went from, well, we had a quantum leap in terms of our revenue in 2020, and we really should have been hiring in 2020, right?
Right.
All we did was we brought in an assistant for Jess, right?
Right.
I wasn't really in the business yet. And I didn't really like fully onboard until January of 2021, like really, right? And then I didn't know what the heck I was doing, and I still kind of don't, but I didn't really understand and could speak to the business as well as I can now until, 6 months in. So
Right.
those things take time, but yeah, I mean, it's amazing what you learn. It's what you said, right? You either
Right.
learn when the ball drops, or you learn by just kind of taking that leap, taking that step, and bringing someone in slowly. And then you're like, I can do this. I have the confidence to do this. This person is really helping me a lot. And what's scary too is you can only imagine the negative. Our brains can't like picture what's possible with the business. We only think like, well, if I hire somebody, it's going to eat into my like emergency fund, or I'm not going to have enough cash flow, or whatever the excuse is. And I've had to work myself through this on a daily basis sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
we only think about that. We don't think about the potential that bringing this person in might do for our business. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, and a lot of businesses kind of, they flatline and they survive for a little bit, and maybe they're still in business, but they're not. You'll see that there's some businesses that have these quantum like year over year growth.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some that either stay flat or it falls off because they got comfortable with getting to a certain revenue point or a certain workload,
Mm-hmm.
and then they couldn't see past it and they didn't hire. And I think that's hiring is probably the most valuable thing. That's why massive companies exist. They hire people, right?
Right. They just multiply. And that's what scaling is. So people say they want to scale. And I always say that scaling
They think about revenue.
Isn't just increasing revenue. It
Right.
is about lather, rinse, repeat, and replicate yourself and exponentially grow. And that also involves people, not just money. And that's the only way you're going to actually exponentially grow your revenue, is if you can come up with a tried and true method you can teach other people to do. And then that's when you really sit back and just, cash the checks. So if you're looking at building a business, hiring is one of the first steps there. And honestly, the hidden blessing of hiring for me in my business was it forced me, not that I don't like this because I come from 15 years of process improvement work, but it forced me to document my processes and develop a recipe for what we do, where I could teach anyone to do what we do. And having different people go through this with me and train them. Now I'm like, boom, here's the manual, here's the operating handbook. Here you go. This is what we do every single month. It has made my relationship with my coworkers better, but it's also actually enhanced my client service, because now when we have new clients come in, we have a very specific onboarding process, onboarding call and checklist. We have, processes around everything that we do monthly. There's a routine that we follow, and it just feels at ease for me because I know, hey, it's the 8th of the month. I know what the bookkeepers are doing. I know what to tell the clients if they ask. And it frees me up to really just honestly do what I do with you, which is like text and call when people have questions and just want peace of mind that like, hey, Shan, I have a question.
Yeah.
I am not annoyed, as much as you guys love to preface it with, hey, I know you're busy, but I'm like,
well, it's busy season.
It is busy season, but but I'm working for you. So when you send me a message, that's priority because you're my client. Now, of course, there's like fire drills, emergencies, and all these things, but like, if I can't do that, then I have too much and I need to hire someone else. And that's that's my true belief. If I cannot respond to you, something is wrong in my business that I need to correct. It's not, and so many accountants out there are not seeing it like that. They're just churning out like a tax return factory, and they don't respond to client emails, which I never understood.
Yeah, I mean, well, and also like when you think about the different services that you offer, right? And your higher tiered services and things like that, like that's what we expect. Right.
Right.
And like you and I are close on a personal level. So like, you know, I would, if you weren't totally available, I'd, you know, give grace if needed. Right. But at the same
Yeah.
time, that's what the client expects. So if you don't have that time to respond and it's not built into your business, then it's kind of like, why are you offering it? Right. So I give you so much credit. And just to go back real quick on what you just said about building the systems and or the blueprint, right? While
Right.
you're building it, like I got to give you so much credit for that because like that type of stuff gives me anxiety. And I think it's like women are just like so much more organized than men. I feel like generally speaking, it's just like so impressive because like that's how Jess thinks. Our integrator, Lauren, or COO, because a lot of people don't know what integrator is, but
Right.
Lauren, they're just, I'm so scatterbrained and visionary and thinking like that, where I feel like someone like you're a visionary, but you also could be an integrator if you wanted to be.
Oh,
You're like the COO.
I love a good whiteboard. I also won't
Yeah.
do anything. I'm a visionary, but I go, nothing's happening until I can put this on a whiteboard and map it out like Sheldon
You're
Cooper.
super tactical,
Yeah.
but also at the same time, like crazy visionary. Like we have conversations and you come up with like so many ideas for us. But
Mhm.
I just wanted to kind of point that out and commend you for that because
Thank you.
a lot of people don't realize that until someone tells them like, hey, you just did XYZ. Why didn't you, while you were doing it, create like a manual? And like the fact that, you know, you're able to do that is just super impressive. But yeah.
Yeah, I actually did. Well, that's the years though of my career. So this is why there's no time wasted. Because if someone said, what if you started your business 10 years ago? What would have happened? It would have been a shit show. It would have been a total shit show because every ounce of time I've spent in my corporate jobs. This is the other thing too. You have to understand that you don't start over no matter what change you make in life. You're not starting over because if I did not have I had 2 years of sales experience. Because I was a technical salesperson for a software company. I built workflow tools and had to give them to developers to build software. I worked with 110 accounting firms across the country on their processes to do tax returns.
Yeah.
I worked with Fortune 50, Fortune 100 companies in New York and in cities all over the country, implementing systems and accounting tools and I audited mutual funds and hedge funds. I go back to even auditing mutual funds and hedge funds. I learned so much about management because I was a manager at 23. I learned about teams and operations and how to create efficiency because we had massive deadlines.
Yeah.
Um, Everything was a lesson that was so valuable in all these little pieces that made up my current approach to everything. And it's like looking back on it, going, every single one of those pieces needs to be in place right now. I wouldn't trade any of it for anything because every piece of experience I had shapes one less mistake I'm making right now.
Yeah, totally. And it just reminded me of, you know, that Steve Jobs quote that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I don't know it exactly, but it's basically you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. And if you, all those things you just mentioned, if you say all those things, yeah, it makes sense why you're doing what you're doing and why you're able to do what you do and why you're successful at what you do. And, you know, for those people that are that are kind of like, man, I want to do something on my own, but I don't know what it is. Like it's there inside of
Mm-hmm.
you. Right. And it just needs to be extracted. And when you think about, I say the
Mm-hmm.
listeners' personal experience, everything that you've gone through, those are dots that can lead to something that you can build on your own, if that's what you want to do, right? But yeah, Shannon, I mean, when you think about the dots that you just shared with us, it does
Right.
make sense why you're at where you're at, and
100%.
you're empowered to be really good. That was not a pun, by
I
the
know.
way.
I know because I was going
Um,
to go into that next.
no, it wasn't. I was going to say you like that those dots have kind of
Mm-hmm.
come together to empower you to do what you're doing now and be
Right.
really, really good at it.
And then from a literal sense. So here's the other thing. When it came to, so despite my backgrounds, this is another thing, like backing up the ego for a second. Despite my background in business, I went to business school. I got my CPA. I have degrees in this stuff. Now, here's the thing. I knew I wanted to do a business. I like start a business on the side. I knew I wanted to serve people directly, serve small business owners and be my own boss. I knew I wanted those things,
Mhm.
but I was like, okay, I know how to work. I know the theory of all this stuff. I know how to do taxes. I know how to do all these things. How do I actually run a business? How do I actually create a
or
business?
start like,
Yeah, like what do I do to start? And that's probably where everybody is right now is like,
yeah,
okay, what do I do first? Like I have a skill, I have a talent, I know what I'm good at, but I'm trying to start this thing, but I don't know what to do. And it was stagnant for like 4 years. I had this idea, didn't do anything with it. And lo and behold, your wife enters my
yeah,
life through a podcast. And I was like, huh, okay, she's smart. She knows some certain things. I'm going to follow her. And then I got to talk to her and I showed her my idea, my logo, and said, this is what I've been secretly wanting to build for 4 years. She was like, done, we're building it. In very Jess fashion. She's like, done, we're doing this.
she can
But
see it.
she
She can
saw
see
it and
it.
she said, you're going to be really good at this. You have the skills. You can do this. I'm going to show you how.
Yeah.
And I was like, I believe you. Like as a friend, I actually just like, I believe this person.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the thing. And for those who don't know, I built Financial Solutions. Like Financial Solutions exists today because I invested in working with Jess, Mike's wife, for 3 months in their program called Empower, which is why I laugh. It's
Yeah.
called Empower, and it was designed to help you create a business from scratch. Now, you guys work primarily with coaches, those who maybe have a little bit of a following and really want to up the ante, or that maybe they don't have anything yet and they're in the ideation stage and they want to build
Mm-hmm.
a business. But I was in that ideation of, I know what I want to build. I have no idea how the F to do it. And it walked me through from unpacking my story, through building a freebie, through the tactic. I loved it because it was super tactical. And it was
Yeah.
like, here's how to use Instagram, Shannon. So it's not your dogs and your dinner anymore. Cut
Right.
that shit out. Like, we're not doing
No one
that.
cares.
You guys can scroll through my Instagram. You'll find pre-Jess. You'll know exactly when Jess came into my life. You will know
Yeah.
exactly when that happened. So, but what happened was things started to click and things started to go, oh, that makes sense. Oh, that makes sense. And all you need is somebody to literally tell you how to apply what you really already know.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the missing link for me. And that's why I'm so glad I, um, 3 years ago, this month, 3 years ago, met Jess and invested in her program, because it was like, oh my gosh, this is how I'm going to be able to grow this thing. And I saw the results almost instantaneously. Um, so for that, I'm forever grateful. But it's the idea that all it takes is one little thing to get started, really, and the commitment.
Yeah. I mean, I love your story, and I just thought of like selfishly, like where would we be from a tax perspective? Because you know how I ended up on your doorstep. I
Yes.
didn't, yeah, we had known you, but like anyway,
Kicking and screaming, you ended up on my doorstep
yeah,
where,
don't do what I did. I reached out to Shannon in like November, I don't even know, early December 2020 or something, but don't do that. But anyway, um,
we need to get this
yeah.
done by the end of the year. Can we make this happen? And yes. Yeah, we did some tax planning. We did some
Yeah.
accelerated tax planning, but it got done. And that was the biggest thing for me. Was it was also, by the way, the working with you guys and my introduction into you guys was, um I was trying to convince Jess for months and months before that. I was like nudging her going, hey, I know you guys have somebody, but have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? And then, it was like one conversation where you were like, where she said, I think you have to go talk to Mike. Okay. And, I was so passionate about like, I want you guys to be successful. I want to help you. I want to
Mhm.
do these things. But that's what I do with every client. And that's why it gets me going, where I'm like, I'm so excited to help everybody because I genuinely care about saving people money. And I think it's, um, almost too much, where
Well,
I'm
I
passionate
think there's,
about
I think,
making it work.
yeah, sorry to cut you off. I think there's
You're
a lot
fine.
of people that focus on like saving people money. And like at
Mhm.
the end of the day, a good CPA should do that, right?
Right.
What is just so attractive and just why we're like all in is because you don't just do that. I know you know what you're doing. You're a CPA. You really care about the business, our business, but you also know this entrepreneurial space,
Right.
online, offline. You know the entrepreneurial space, and you do more than just like tax prepare for us. You
Mhm.
you help us with projections and planning and even some marketing stuff that I'll be like, Shannon, what do you think of this? And you're
Yeah.
just like, yeah, I can see the value in that. I can see why you paid this person XYZ. Mike, you didn't pay them too much. It's perfect. And this is why. Or like,
Mhm.
hey, I'm not sure that's a good idea. Right. Um, so when I think about the value of having somebody that's in your corner, I mean, it's just tremendous. Right. And
Yeah. I appreciate
um,
that so much. I really
yeah.
do.
Well, I mean,
Sharing that.
it's true. Right. And people, this might be a little like, uh, a direct, but I feel like people that market to the saving money type of thing, it's just like, cool, that's the tax code. Like that's the tax code. If the
Yeah.
tax code is being implemented correctly for a business, you should be reducing your tax liability.
Right.
You may be able to get something back from the year before from the guy the as opposed to the guy that didn't know what he was doing with his taxes, or Joe Schmo down the street, or the
Right. Right.
person
Right.
your dad introduced you to, or TurboTax, or all these things that you shouldn't be using if you have a small business, right?
Mhm.
The cool thing for us is that you were able to kind of step outside your career and build this through Empower. For us, that's just like so special because now we're working together on all different types of levels.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's all these full circle moments that I love, including this conversation. Right.
Yeah,
Um, so with that, I'm gonna ask you a few questions, Mike, that I ask all the guests. We're gonna do some
sure.
rapid fire questions, and we're
Okay,
gonna tie a bow on this with learning more about your business and what you guys have coming up. So let's start with Mike. What is one investment that you can't live without?
health.
Okay.
So gym, eating well. It's always been it's always just been like a massive thing in my life.
Perfect. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. That's paramount. What did you learn in school, or it's not in school necessarily, but what did you learn about money that turned out not to be true?
um, I came from the household like money doesn't grow on trees,
Hmm.
and your houses should be your biggest investment. Those type of things. I would encourage the audience to read Rich Dad Poor Dad and get out of that mindset, or like Secret to the Millionaire Mind.
Yeah, that's another great one. Uh, so what makes you feel like a millionaire?
Well, being one, but also
It's what makes you
um,
feel like one, not what
what
makes
makes
you
you feel like
one.
one. Yeah, I think
Yes.
there's so we prescribe to be, do, have,
Hmm.
and you need to feel like one before you can be one. And the way you feel like one is to act like one. And the way you act like one, although there seems to be a large portion of the population that doesn't subscribe to this, and I think that's what's holding them back, the way you act like one is um, to dig into things that are going to improve your life, whether that's reading books, fitness, mindset. To me, that's a millionaire, or it's 2022, Shannon. So that's a billionaire life, right? It's
Exactly. I thought
living
about changing that question because I'm going, well, a millionaire is
right.
but it's the idea of a millionaire from our generation.
What
A
is a millionaire anyway,
millionaire,
right? Like
right?
people throw that number around. Like, are we talking net worth? Are we talking, are you adding in the houses you own, right? So when I think
Yeah.
about a true millionaire life, a life of alignment, the billionaire life, the life we should be aspiring to, it's living life on your own terms, and trying to create a bigger impact on the world. So that's my answer. You can edit out the beginning part.
We probably won't. But we couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more with you there. So, and
Well,
tell
just
our
Shannon, real quick, because I know that was
yes.
rapid fire, but I think it's important to say when we got out of the scarcity mindset,
Hmm.
it was years ago, right? That's when things took off for us. And again, people roll their eyes on those things. When we started donating more money, when we started giving more without expectation of receiving, great book, Go Giver, read that. When we started actually doing those things, not just talking about them on podcasts or talking about them with friends or people that we're trying to impress, when we actually started to live that way, then that's when everything like just, I don't know, it came back full circle. It was
Yeah.
crazy. It all started happening at the same time. Jess's business exceeded 7 figures in revenue. Uh, we built at the same time. Pencils of Promise gave us a call, and they told us that they were building a school that we put in my mom's name, right? So, and we were able to do those things because we were giving,
Mhm.
and it was coming back full circle.
Right. And it really does. It's that whole be do have thing is really true. You have to embody what it is you want to be, and it
Yeah.
will come to fruition. And it's like, I'm not really big on the woo stuff, you know this, but there is there is a degree of, the what you call it, manifesting or whatever. It's showing up, and convincing yourself that this is the truth. And it's amazing
Mhm.
how it does really become reality the more that you show up a certain way and that you deliver on that and you take action. It really does make a difference.
Yeah, it does. I mean, we're not talking about closing our eyes and then like, all of a sudden something great's going to happen when
Right.
we say manifest, right? But it is getting yourself in the right frame of mind so that you can, number one, be happy where you're already at. Because if you're not happy where you're at,
Hmm.
just in terms of what you have and everything like that, how can you have the audacity to ask for a
Right.
better life or something else if you don't already appreciate what you have? And I definitely struggled with that for a big portion of my life, always looking at what other people had and things like that. And when I chopped that out, that's when I was able to make decisions that were best for me. And that made a big difference.
Yeah. So tell us, Mike, how we can find out more about what you and Jess are up to, more about
Yeah.
Empower and what you have going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, you can find us on Instagram. Jess is mainly the face, but I'll give you my Instagram too. You can come say
Mhm.
hello. My Instagram is mike.derose. That's DEROSE. And Jess's is I am Jessica Rose. She just started a new Instagram page, but come over, say hello, say where you found out about us. And right now we are in the middle of a completely free webinar masterclass, which really speaks to some of the stuff Shannon was mentioning in terms of Empower and what Empower is. And so if you have that, hey, I want to do something, but I don't know what it is. Or you could be the other person that's, hey, I have something going, but I'm not quite there. I'm not hitting six figures, or I'm at six figures, but I'm not really in like a rhythm. I really think you'll get a lot of value from this free webinar. So I'd love to have you guys there, and you can come to our Instagram and you'll have the link to that there.
Yeah, and we'll link everything that we have in the show notes for you so you have the fastest route to find Mike and Jess and what they're up to. Highly recommend following them and following along with their journey, because they do share a lot of their own personal story on there. And I think that's amazing that you guys are putting yourselves out there, taking people along for the ride, for the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it, because I think there's a lot to be gained from learning from your experience as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Shannon.
All right. Thank you, Mike, for joining, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you. My pleasure.